Rick Horrow inside the boardroom beyond the scoreboard. This is the time for the mainstream sports, the NHL and NBA season starting. NFL, we talk about the off-field issues, but on-field is riveting the nation, as is college football and Major League Baseball ready for playoffs. But by the way, in the trillion-dollar business, the up-and-coming dollars are made from what probably is called the niche sports, but you probably shouldn't call it that, to Courtney Force Rahal. She's been a force in NHRA competition in all levels. Her funny car debut years ago, but certainly the spokesperson of what you might call one of the sports that I certainly wouldn't do, but I know you have done it and conquered it. How's that for an intro?
It sounds good to me.
Yeah, well, listen, a drag racer, I guess you'd call it, currently competing for the NHRA, but so much more. Tell us a bit about the business in a broad perspective.
Well, for starters, NHRA drag racing, I drive a funny car. We go 0 to 1,000 feet at over 330 miles an hour in just under 4 seconds. It's a 10,000 horsepower car. We're pulling about 5 or 6 Gs off the line, and about negative 5 or 6 Gs when we hit the parachutes down at the top end to slow our car down. So it's definitely an extreme sport. The business side of things is really, being able to be in these race cars and getting able to compete due to the fact that we have sponsorship dollars. Without our sponsors on our race cars funding these cars and these teams, we wouldn't be able to be out there doing what we love. So sponsorship deals play a huge role in being a successful team.
So Mellow Yellow, obviously not new to the game, but clearly their mark and brand is all over the series. How have they become involved, and I guess how thankful are you to have them as a partner?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, obviously, having the Coca-Cola company and Mellow Yellow in particular, being the backing behind the NHRA right now, and allowing all of us drivers to be able to be out there competing on a 24 event 24 race circuit, and obviously with money that you get from wins and all of that, and obviously the main goal at the end of the season is the championship check. That's why we all get to be out here is because these sponsors are funding us, and then the teams individually. For me, it's Advanced Auto Parts, Chevrolet, Peak, Monster Energy, Auto Club. I mean, we have a number of sponsors that for myself, my dad, my sister Brittany, and my other teammate Robert Height, all 4 of us on the John Force Racing team are sharing these sponsors and pushing these brands individually, as well. So it's like I said, if it weren't for all these sponsors, backing these teams, and obviously we have competitive teams out there that are repping different sponsors. But if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to have the people working on our cars that we would like, and great crew chiefs that sometimes you got to pay a lot of money for, and the right parts and pieces for this race car, and being able to have the funding to go out there and try to test some of these new parts too is a pretty big deal.
Business show, and we've had a lot of different perspectives on auto racing broadly defined. Mark Miles and his world from IndyCar perspective, and as well as Marco Andretti and Andretti Autosport. The NASCAR folks, clearly from Brian to Lisa on down to the individual track people. And so one of the things we found in common is you mentioned your sponsors, some of them, Auto Club and Monster. A lot of them are involved in a lot of other aspects of racing. So does the tide lift all boats? Is it important for racing broadly defined to succeed? Is your niche in the racing industry kind of more important than others? What's your take on all of that?
Well, I mean, I think it's great when you can see that sponsors are, they're activating in different places and, pushing their athlete or their driver. And it's great to be able to see them be so involved. I mean, obviously, they're involved in NHRA drag racing for a reason. Obviously it's working year after year for the ones that stay with us. So, I mean, I think that's always a positive thing. They're obviously seeing that we're hitting the right audiences, whether it's, with NHRA drag racing, with the people that come out to the racetrack or the people that are tuning in to watch NHRA. I think that they're hitting a lot of different audiences, and especially with NHRA, I feel like you get all different ages, and there's so much diversity in our sport alone that I think that's what attracts so many different sponsors, because they know that they're going to be able to hit so many different types of people and so many different types of ages, which I think is great for obviously a lot of companies, and especially when you get young people involved, repping their brand and also knowing that their brand is trying to reach a younger crowd now that, social media is taking off and everything. I think a lot of these brands are seeing that and seeing the big deal that, it's making going with a sport like drag racing and seeing, that it is, a positive thing for them.
Yeah. And so, you graduate Cal State Fullerton majoring in communications, so obviously you understand what it's like to be part of a broadly defined business. Plus, you just turned 30, and, are you washed up in the business, even though, your dad's 69 and he's the winningest NHRA champion as well? You got sisters involved, too. How long are you staying in the business? How competitive is it with your family as well?
Well, it's obvious that it's competitive for any age, obviously, right now. I'm currently in the number 1 spot for the countdown to the championship, so I feel like I've got a pretty good thing going, and that's due to the fact that, I'm working pretty hard to try and not only be the best female driver out there, but obviously try and be the best driver out there in the funny car category. And, I've got great crew chiefs and great teams that are behind me and giving me a great race car to run. So, I think it just depends on each individual person. My sister Brittany, she just won the championship last year in the top field dragster category. She's the first female to do it in 34 years. And I'm looking to be the first female to do it in the funny car category. So, I've definitely set a lot of goals for myself. I'm competing against my dad, who's in his 60s and racing hard. He's got 16 championships. He's on the verge of 150 national event wins, and, he's still killing it out there on the racetrack. And, he's one of those drivers that everybody is afraid to race because he is so competitive, and he's got, a great car and a great team, and he can still cut a good light. And that's really the most important thing when you get in that race car, is being able to be both, physically and mentally capable of driving one of these race cars and being able to cut a good light off the line to take out your opponent down at the top end.
Your family, by the way, at the risk of stating the obvious, is a performance and marketing machine. And when you think about what it offers to corporations broadly defined, from the millennials all the way to us old geezers, it's incredible and unparalleled. Have you thought about life after racing and where it goes?
Not really. The focus right now, my whole world is wrapped around this championship. This is what I'm gunning for, and that's where my focus is at. I don't think it needs to be anywhere else. This is a dream of mine that I've had since I was a little kid, and we're in a good position right now. We've got a great race car running strong, and like I said, we're number 1 in the points right now. They just reset the point system, so we had a 210-point lead, and now they reset it, so we have a 20-point lead as we kick off the countdown to the championship and battle it out for the next 6 races. So we'll see what we can do, but no, my focus is definitely to go for that championship.
And the NHRA generally, there's been an article that talked about it being the next Disney. You have a long-term multi-year partnership with Fox to televise all the NHRA events. Feeling pretty good about the NHRA as it currently stands?
Yeah, it's a growing sport. We've seen that with the number of sellouts that we had at the racetrack. The grandstands are packed full of people. The ratings on Fox have, skyrocketed. So, we've got no complaints. I think it's clear that we're definitely heading in the right direction. I'm sure there's always room for improvement with different things, but no, I'm extremely happy with what NHRA has done and how they've grown the sport. And, I think that's also based on the fact that there's so many different people involved in it. Like I said, the diversity, the different ages that are involved in the sport. There's a lot of different opportunities, being that you can start at the age of 5 in a junior dragster and work your way up all the way to the pros and do, either race a funny car, a dragster, a pro stock bike, a pro stock car. There's so many different options out there. And I think for the fans, I think it's great because for our sport, every ticket's a pit pass. So they can just get a general admission ticket, come right in, sit in the grandstands and watch our side-by-side racing and also come back to the pits. A lot of different things in the pit area that they can see, which is the teams tearing apart the motor, rebuilding it in just under an hour, watching the warm-up, smelling the nitro and just feeling the vibration of these cars because they're so powerful, and getting to meet the drivers. Like I said, every ticket's a pit pass, so I think the access that they get is unlike any other sport out there.
Well, I'm in. Let me ask you this, just a couple more. From your perspective, and for people that maybe haven't seen it, which if they're in a cave, how long are your races?
So it's, in one individual race, it's a 4-second race. So we go from 0 to 1,000 feet in about 3.8 seconds at over 330 miles an hour. It's side-by-side racing, and on race day, you get about 4 rounds of elimination. So we get 2 qualifying passes on Friday and 2 qualifying passes on Saturday, and you have to lock in the top 16 quickest cars. And if you're not locked in the top 16 spot, you don't get to race on Sunday. So Sunday is elimination rounds and 4 rounds till you end up in that winner's circle. At the risk of stating the obvious, a good start's pretty important. Have you thought of, or have you reached out to Usain Bolt or some of the top 100-yard dash folks in the world to commiserate as to what the commonalities of getting a quick start are, or is your sport so unique to yourself that you don't do that? I haven't tried doing that. I've just talked with other racers in other forms of motorsports as well, just to kind of get everyone's feedback. Everyone's a little bit different, though. I think it really is what works for you and what is shown to be the best that works for you. And that, for me, it's just practicing on my I have like a portable Christmas tree that I'm always practicing on. Obviously, our sport is a physical sport and a mental sport. So, we all are hitting the gym, trying to get in shape to have, great reaction time when we get in the seat of this race car. So, and another thing is being able to handle the car at 11,000 horsepower down the racetrack. You drop one cylinder, and it's equivalent to an entire NASCAR motor. So, that's a lot of horsepower just coming out of one cylinder for a run. So, no, for me, I just try to keep myself ready and prepared and really always just practicing to have that mental game down and to have great reaction times. But that just comes with practice. Final question. So you talk about how you pick the brain of others in the industry and others in driving. Obviously, there's a lot of brain picking going on. You're married to Graham Rahal, and the whole Rahal family has been pretty significant in IndyCar, open wheel, and everything else. Do you regularly compare how much more physically demanding and mentally demanding your sport is to his? Well, I think it's a huge difference. Obviously, theirs is IndyCar racing is more of a marathon. Ours is more of a sprint. It's just a little bit different. But the person's still sweating their butt off by the end of it, whether you're watching a sprint or a marathon. But no, it's just they're just unique in their own ways, and physically and mentally demanding. I think ours is a lot more unpredictable. And, there's obviously a lot more horsepower in our cars and a lot faster speed. But at the same time, we stay in our own lane, and they are going, nose to nose with some of these other cars that are, right out their windows. So it's they're just completely different. It really is hard to compare the two. But I'm glad I don't have to compete against my husband. I think it'd be probably very bad for our marriage because they're both so competitive. But it's great. I give him a lot of credit for what he does in IndyCar. I think that's a crazy sport as well and extremely dangerous too. So, yeah, it's hard to tell. I think anytime you get strapped into a race car, anything can happen, and you just have to be ready for it. And my sense is the trash talking around a Thanksgiving table is confined to football or some other sport. Courtney Force. Yes, definitely. Rick Horrow, speak with you soon. Thank you so much.